Anyways, would of, I could care less. What all these statements have in common? Well, they're among the most commonly misused words and phrases in America. That's according to a survey by the international educational platform Preply. Those researchers surveyed 2,000 native English speakers in America and analyzed Google search data to highlight what some might call linguistic faux pas. And joining us to dive into the dynamics of language are Jacob Phillips, a teaching fellow in the University of Chicago's Linguistics Department, and David Durian, a longtime Chicagoan who now is an English and linguistics instructor at Bloomsburg University of Pennsylvania. Welcome both of you to Chicago tonight.
Well,
Jacob,
thanks.
well, it's good to have you both. Jacob, I'll start with you. As a linguist, when you hear some of those misuses or little errors in phrasing, does it bother you at all?
Hi, great. Thank you so much for having me. No, it doesn't bother me. There are things that we notice that we pay attention to. But as linguists, we're interested in how people talk. We do what's called descriptive linguistics. We care about how different people are using all different kinds of language all around the country. And this might kind of contradict what your high school English teachers may have taught you about prescriptive language of don't end a sentence in a preposition, don't say some of those examples like you gave, like anyways. But, you know, we would maybe say that these are different variations that we hear all across the country, and they're interesting to us because they tell us a little bit about each person. The way that we use language helps people know a bit more about you.
Well, and David Durian, that leads to the existential question. Are there really incorrect pronunciations or incorrect phrases, or just things that we've collectively established as a standard?
Yeah, I mean, that's really more what it is things we've collectively established as a standard, you know, based on kind of ideas that have been received by society over time. A lot of them were kind of established back in the late 1700s and early 1800s by grammarians at the time. We've kind of carried those forward into English even, you know, today. And nowadays you kind of see those same things talked about, you know, in schools. So again, kind of your high school English teacher, you know, that Jacob was talking about before, you know, you kind of see those same things now talked about.
Well, let's look at the most searched for pronunciations in America, perhaps from students in those English classes trying not to get an F. Hermes, the clothing company, tinnitus, not tinnitus, tinnitus, meme, Cthulhu, Curacao, so on and so forth, Chipotle. I assume that you saw this list. Jacob Phillips, what do you make of this list of most Googled pronunciations?
Yeah, I was definitely surprised about it. And I think the thing that pops out the most is that for the most part, English speakers in the US are looking up foreign words. They're words from French, they're words from Spanish, words from Aztec, like Chipotle. These are just words that aren't common to us. And for the most part, we are pretty good at pronouncing our own words in our own language.
Right. I also saw caprese on there, the Italian appetizer. Okay, let's look at the most commonly misused words and phrases in America. As we mentioned before, people say I could care less. It's supposed to be I couldn't care less. Would of, it's supposed to be would have. Anyways, that's not a word. Anyway. Irregardless, not a word. Regardless, should have, so on and so forth. Okay, Dave, what do you make of these phrases?
I mean, they strike me as just fine. They're common things that people say. You know, a lot of those are kind of subject to kind of various pronunciation processes that happen. You know, people delete segments of sounds and kind of bring things together. The Chipotle thing you mentioned before, or maybe Jacob mentioned it, you know, that's like a common thing that happens too with sounds being reversed. So people say, you know, Chipotle, was it Chipotle? Instead of, yeah, you know, people just reverse sounds. You know, that's a pretty common thing that people do as well, especially if it's a foreign word where they're not sure what to do with it and they feel a little uncomfortable about it. So I don't, they strike me as just fine and just variation. I mean, some of these things too that they talked about in the survey, like, for example, what's correct, kitty corner or catty corner, those are just dialectal differences in US English. There's not actually one correct form. Northerners tend to say kitty corner, Southerners tend to say catty corner, and there's not really just one correct way of saying it. So it also kind of strikes me a little bit odd that they say certain things are supposed to be more correct than others when there's not really an established standard.
Well, yeah, and you look at a study like this, Jacob Phillips. I mean, does it look a little bit prejudiced when you gotta take into consideration different regions of the country, different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, gender backgrounds, so on and so forth. As a linguist, do you have to consider all those things?
Yeah, so that's one of the things David and I were actually talking about a bit earlier is we don't really know who took this survey right now. So there are a lot of questions about would we get the same kind of responses if we were asking a lot of people of different backgrounds. If we had a lot more people from the South, we had a lot younger participants, maybe, younger people, there seems to be that generational divide with the Chipotle pronunciation. So maybe younger people weren't taking this quite as much. But yeah, when we're designing our studies, you definitely want to, make sure you're asking the right people of who you're focused on, whether you're getting a representative sample or whether you really want to focus on Chicago and get, those subtle differences between different neighborhoods in Chicago, like Beverly versus Bridgeport or something like that.
Certainly, even down to the word Chicago. There's Chicago and there's Chicago, depending on what part of the city you're from. David Durian, in this survey, it looked like about 1 in 5 people said they were comfortable correcting people in public, strangers or family members, if they, quote unquote, misuse these words. Is it appropriate to correct people?
I mean, people do it because they have a strong sense of the standard. I don't know if it's necessarily appropriate. I think what we really want to do, maybe as a culture, is move on in the 21st century more to accepting, diversity rather than trying to uphold just one particular standard or one particular way of doing things. I realize people do that and they may even feel like they need to do that, but I don't think we as a culture have to do that. I think, again, kind of maybe trying to move towards a way where we try to understand differences more and appreciate cultural diversity more, even with things like pronunciation or with word usage, could be a better way to go than trying to correct people.
I've certainly, in this career, had the grammar police come after me for certain pronunciations and phrases. All right, interesting discussion, and our thanks to Jacob Phillips and David Durian.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.